Hey there, this is Christine. Thanks for tuning into my Mostly Keto Kitchen today. So today what I'd like to do is look at some different recommendations for how much sugar we should eat. And I'm also going to present the information that's found on the Coca-Cola website. And so why I want to do this is because I want you to understand that our government and the food industry are not necessarily keeping our best interests in mind when they give us recommendations. And so, and that's just part of being in a free market economy like we have. They want to sell their products, and so they're going to do the best that they can to try to minimize the detrimental effects that sugar has. Now, if you've watched my last two videos, I presented data in those showing that the fructose part of the sucrose causes biochemical changes that leads people in the direction towards diabetes. So the things that I showed were that fructose can increase the amount of insulin in the blood, and it also can decrease the amount of glucose that is getting used. So what that does is it leads to increased glucose levels, so high blood glucose levels, which then can cause glycation, and then that can cause damage to our proteins, which is essentially what diabetes is. So the first thing I'd like to do is take a look at the recommendations on Coca-Cola's website. They do a great job of providing lots of extra nice educational information to make it seem like they care, and and maybe they do, because they have a lot of products that have low sugar or no sugar. But let's take a look at what they say. So this picture here is directly from the Coca-Cola website. It says, what is the recommended daily intake for added sugar? It says, we support the current recommendations by several leading health authorities, including the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans. They say that children and adults should limit added sugar to no more than 10% of their total energy/calorie consumption. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So it says U.S. Food and Drug Administration and then the U.S. Dietary Guidelines. And so what I've written up here, we've got USDA and FDA, and it ends up that the CDC also follows the same idea, that 10% of the total calories. So just to give you an idea what that is, it's about 12.5 teaspoons if you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, and 9.4 teaspoons if you're eating about, say, 1,500 calories. I would say most women who are kind of in their 40s or 50s and older, we're not eating 2,000 calories a day. We're probably eating closer to the 1,500 calorie mark. But that varies. Totally varies from person to person, but at least that kind of gives you an idea what the range is there. So as far as grams go, that's 50 grams of sugar for the higher calorie diet and 38 grams of sugar. And this fits in great with Coca-Cola's message, because a can of Coke, and a can is not the 16-ounce bottle, but just a 12-ounce can of Coke has 39 grams of sugar in it. And so they're saying, hey, having a Coke every day is perfectly fine. You're gonna fall within what is allotted. So good enough. All right, but now here's the tricky thing. This is USDA, FDA, CDC are all saying that. But let's look at over here what the World Health Organization says. Half as much as that. 5% of the total calories should be coming from the added sugars. So in which case we've got 6 teaspoons, which is 25 grams for the higher calorie diet, and you've got a little bit under 5 teaspoons for a 1,500 calorie diet. So much, much less. The can of Coke does not fit within this, and so that's probably why Coca-Cola is not mentioning it on their website. Now, previously, I also talked about the American Heart Association. So this is American Heart Association. Their recommendations don't have to do with the number of calories that you take in over the day, but they just said 6 teaspoons for women and kids, 9 teaspoons for men. All right. So anyway, so you can see that there are different organizations, probably with different pressures on them. You can imagine USDA is, they're going to be influenced by the food industry, and so there's pressure on them to, put it as high as possible without, doing anything too detrimental. But the problem is this is a lot of sugar, right? I put a little person down here. Remember, the amount of glucose, right? The amount of glucose in your blood, and so your whole vasculature system, the amount of glucose in your blood at a given time is around a teaspoon. So when you go and take in 12 teaspoons of sugar, you are just absolutely jacking up way above the amount of glucose that should be in there. I mean, remember, a sucrose is half fructose, half glucose, but either way, you're increasing the amount of glucose that's in your cells, and or in your body, and that's, you know, your insulin system is supposed to just bring that back down, which is all fine and good, right? So kids, we don't see a lot of diabetes in kids early on because their insulin systems are working great. Now, sadly, we're seeing more and more diabetes in kids, but like I look at my son, probably his insulin system is working just fine. He can go ahead and have a bunch of sugar, his insulin system's gonna work, he's gonna put it away like he's supposed to, and he's gonna use his glucose like he should, and no problem. But the problem is if we just keep pounding that system and asking for our pancreas to keep putting out that insulin and asking our cells to open the door and keep bringing glucose in, eventually we end up breaking that system down. And that's probably what, you know, ends up happening as a person gets diabetes. So. All right, I want to close with this other picture. So this is an Odwalla. Here we've got an Odwalla nutrition label, and I just bring this up because, you know, it sure looks healthy. It's green. It says it's original superfood. It's a smoothie, 100% juice. It also says no sugar added. So, you know, it looks like so many great things about it. But if we look over here, we'll see that there are 58 grams of total carbohydrates in it. 51 of those grams are sugar. 51 grams of sugar. So that's even above this, the USDA recommendations. I mean, just by a gram, but that's that 12.5 teaspoons for somebody who's on a 2,000 calorie diet. So that means, you know, you're a fairly big eater, and now you're having this, you have totally maxed out the amount of added sugar that you should have for a day, and that's on what is really the higher recommendation compared to WHO and the American Heart Association. Here, for men, it was 36 grams. So that Odwalla is just so far above and beyond what, you know, what a person really should be having in a day. So, all right, thanks so much for listening.